All right, Susan, I'm so excited to have you here with me. Thank you so much for being willing to play this game here called Podcast.
Well, I'm up for fun and games, as you know. So let's do
All
it.
right. Well, I want to start with a post that you recently put on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and I want to discuss it a bit because I thought it was a good one. And your post said, but mostly sheep aren't all black or white. Often we are all a mix. The real question is this: do you tell the truth about yourself, about others, about context and bias and interest and opinion? Do you? And then it says, bah. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, leadership, a lot of times we think leadership is about being the shepherd and everyone else's sheep. But that's really not true, is it? Uh, we're not the shepherd when we're leaders. We're just the lead sheep,
Mm.
right? We're the sheep that the shepherd, if there is one, pushes you toward, and then everybody else follows you, right? So, whatever kind of sheep you are doesn't really matter when you're a leader, whether you're a black sheep, a white sheep, whether you have a position or you don't have a position. Um, Sometimes the renegades in your organization are the only ones telling the truth, but sometimes um, it's the people we think are renegades are not really full renegades. That we're all a mix. And I think the challenge is to be able to tell the truth wherever you are at any level, and the leadership role is really to kind of handle that and disseminate that truth in a practical, real way across the organization.
I like how you say it's to disseminate the truth in a practical and real way across the organization. I like it, and I know that it may not necessarily be the easiest thing for people to do. How how do you manage to disseminate the truth? To walk between being, let's say, a mixed sheep, the black sheep, the white sheep, a mixed sheep. How do you balance that? How do you do that?
Well, I guess one thing that is important to leaders is you have to be so confident that you know what the truth is, that you can walk in it, because you don't know till the end whether you've successfully rolled it out to your whole
Mm.
organization so that they get it until the end, right? So you can't start off assuming that the end is in front of you, like right the next step, right? Because there's a lot of ups and downs along the way. Sometimes, and when I work with leaders myself, um, my compassion for them and my passion to help them with is a lot of times as a leader, you just have to walk alone,
Mm.
because even though people are kind of with you, they're with you, but from a very far distance, right? So you're out there, you're the target as a leader. Um, the people who don't understand what you're doing are often trying to interpret and process what you're doing and how you're trying to lead by making up ways that they could lead better.
All right. And
Right? They can do it better. She should do this. He should do that. If his personality wasn't that way,
mm,
if he didn't do that, if he was more approachable, if she, you know, communicated better, what fill in the blank, whatever the thing is that they think they can do it better. And so it's not really helpful feedback, and that kind of unhelpful feedback, it's a processing truth but not the truth. So a leader that internalizes all of those things that are coming at you while you're trying to get where you need to go can it can derail you both as a person and as a leader.
mhm.
But I think it's important, the more experience as a leader you have, is that it is somewhat of an art as well as a science, is that you're able to pick that one voice of truth that is actually helpful. So the thing that's coming out as people are processing things, if you're seeing a theme, right, you can extrapolate that truth and say, well, maybe I could communicate better about where we are, what we're doing. So maybe I do need to slow down and let them catch up to me. Or maybe I need to go faster so that they can see some results and then they'll get it. So in that sense, you're not going to know whether you've been successful disseminating the truth that you're leading people in right away, because there's a huge path to get there and a lot of meandering paths to get there. But I think the key to real leadership is recognizing the truth, because you're going to hear a lot of stories and words and what we like to put under the umbrella of feedback.
Well, it makes me think of the comments section, whether it's on a YouTube video or something you post in social media. Some of the comments, some of the feedback is constructive. Mm-hmm. Others, I don't know what they're thinking. And I've seen a couple of, let's say, we'll call them successful people by our standards, and they make they comment about the comments they receive, and they really just have to kind of push them to the side so that they can continue on their path of truth. And that what you shared kind of reminds me of the stories that I've heard. Have not had this experience myself, but it's just that little reminder there that we need to be careful about what we take to heart in terms of comments. We need to be clear enough to know our truth and to move forward with that. You also mentioned if you see things, so let's pretend we don't turn off all comments. We're not pushing away all feedback.
Right. We're not isolating ourselves and leading from a bubble.
Not leading. Oh, I love that. Not leading from a bubble. So since we're not leading from a bubble, if we see a theme appear, that might be a sign for us to, pay attention, to analyze it, to see if that is truly something for us to.
I love what you just said right there, though. Analyze it. Because when you see a pattern of truth, you don't just jump on it and assume it's true. It's what you've discovered is a point of truth that is worth exploring. Mm. So maybe my communication skills are bad, maybe, or whatever that thread is that you're picking up on as you're leading your organization or your project forward or your people forward. But maybe it's just a point of exploration for you. Sometimes just tweaking a small thing, a small message, making yourself available. So it's not everything or nothing. Mm-hmm. It's not that you suck as a communicator. It's just they're listening for something to help them process what you're saying, and they're not hearing it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you can just find out what that one thing is, and just say that, and everything else clicks. Right. So I think that, as I said, it's a science, but it's also an art. And I do think that the more experienced you are, it's not just about what you do, it's about what you don't do.
Well, you talk about experience, and I have my handy dandy list of questions here. And one of the questions I have, it's sitting right here.
Well, lay it on me there, Erica.
This is a simple one. Someone mentioned to me that before, they were like, this is a layup. I was like, okay. How did your leadership journey begin? So how did it all begin?
Well, probably like everyone else who does anything in life, it began as a seed.
Okay.
So, something no one noticed, and not anyone, including me, knew what it was. So I think My earliest recollection is I'm just my personality. I like order. I like putting things in order. In my mind, it's like a web of connection. It's a 3-dimensional web. So anything that you tweak on one side affects everything else. And it's my job in my world, in my head, to put that in order. So go back to preschool when all of my report cards said, she's so bossy. It wasn't a power trip. I didn't want to be in charge of any of the people, but by goodness, those bricks needed to be where I put them. So, and you can help me. So put that brick right there. So I think those are seeds of leadership where you're not afraid to speak out and do something, whatever that is. But I think as it grows, where it has to grow because it's planted somewhere, whether it's in school, your home, your community, your church or synagogue or whatever, your faith-based location, or, or work, wherever that might be, you take your seed with you. And so it grows. And as it sprouts up, it's your job to nourish it and keep it alive. And sometimes, here's the thing about anything that grows, including leadership, is that things don't just grow. They don't. They have to be nourished, they have to be fed, they have to be tended, and unfortunately, they also have to be pruned. And that's very painful, especially for leaders who've spent so much energy building something, and then to have something fall through the cracks, it can be just demoralizing to them as a person. But if you recognize in the big picture of your leadership that you have to be pruned so you can grow taller, it puts it in a better context, and it's also part of growth. To be pruned in the right way depends on where you're growing and where you want to grow. So you're going to invest in the skills that you value and that you want to grow in that area. And the more you put into that, that's the branch that grows.
Well, you mentioned growth, and I'm curious as to how leadership has helped you grow as a person, as a human being.
Well, I think the big thing for me was to slow down. And I say that because when you're I'm going to use the word bossy, but I'm not sure that that's the right word. When you're focused on making your vision come to life, and the people who are leaders, it's not that they're the only ones who have vision. It's just that their passion is to make it manifest, right? In an organization, in a community, in a people, wherever that is, right? So that's our passion. We want to make it real somewhere, the thing that we're seeing in our head, because we know that once it's there and it's manifest, things will be better. We can get so focused on that we forget to interact properly with our surroundings that already exist. And I say that in a metaphorical sense and a literal sense. I got a lot done in my early work life. I was in charge of pretty much everything until I was bored with it and took something else on and did it all. But I remember being sent to, like internal training classes because they said I needed to be more flexible. And I thought they were stupid because I was like, well, if the more flexible I am, the less I'm going to do what's getting you all your bonuses. So that doesn't seem very smart. But I remember making people cry, men cry at these training sessions. And I didn't understand why they were so emotional about our sessions. But I didn't get it. Because I just thought, just do what you need to do to get things done. And if you're successful, that is proof in itself. The real issue is that how you get there and who you get there with sets you up for the next success. So you can get to the top of your step successfully, and if no one else is there, your options for the next level of success have diminished significantly.
Wow. That
So, yeah. So learning to listen to other people is also a humbling experience, because even though it takes more work for me to readjust all that web of structure in my head about how things should be, and that takes a lot of effort just from the way I think, it's worth it because there are solutions and pathways that I can't see by myself. Those third path, fourth path, 25th path solutions that I would have discounted because I thought they were stupid. But because we can integrate them together, it's 3 or 4 times more powerful and quicker to accomplish what we want to do. So as a leader, you have to ask, do I want to spend all the energy and burn out doing it my way to get it done? Or do I want to slow down, incorporate other people's vision, take the heat of having to readjust my own mental and emotional and professional state in order to let's accomplish it, and then end up with success and people on the other side that opens up a whole new set of potential choices for moving forward. So I'm still learning it, but I'm so much better than I was 35 years ago. So,
when you were
so I,
right?
I finally understood. I finally understood what they meant by flexible, but I think that was a terrible word to use for a professional woman. And I hear that a lot from a lot of women who are in the workplace. So there's a better way of communicating that, I think, to employees or to leaders as you're developing them, that aren't quite as patronizing, maybe.
Well,
Or
it makes me want to double click. Both you and I come, and we met in the world of conversational intelligence, and it would be nice. Hey, let's just double click. Let's double click on this particular,
and maybe triple click. I don't know. Why not? Why the heck not?
But I am struck by the visual of a leader. Just, they're clear. They have their idea, their version of truth. They're marching along the path. But if they have their ears closed, they get to that next level and they can look around and be alone. That's a strong visual for me. So I thank you for, I don't know if you created it on the spot, thought of it before. That is really nice, because that gives a reason why. If you get to the next level alone, then it's harder to even get to your next goal if there's no one, if you're not there with other people. That, for me, that I think that's going to be a huge takeaway from our time together. If you could take a moment and maybe explain what you currently do in leadership, about the organization you lead and what you're about, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. Well, right now I'm running my own organization. It's a nonprofit, 501c3. We do professional development and organizational development. And what we're doing is we're making all of the services and resources and systems available at, and affordable and accessible to everyone at every level. You and I both know coaching, and particularly executive coaching, it's hugely effective, but often it's only for upper management. And the people who need it most to get to the next level, they don't have the money to do it, right? So we're trying to mitigate that and get them the help they need to get to that next level. But in addition, we're a business incubator as well as an organizational incubator. So I work a lot with startups and new executives to get them and their organizations set up and established and sustainable moving forward. So the name of my organization is A Squared Lamp Groups. It's A Squared Lamps, all spelled out, asquaredlamps.org. And the lamp is actually, in addition to being the light of everything, it's actually an acronym for learning opportunities, advancement services, membership benefits, and partnership networking, which is how we accomplish what we're doing.
Will you repeat those again? Learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Learning opportunities, advancement services, which would include coaching, training, and consulting. Mm-hmm. And the third one is membership benefits. And that's how we do it. So we have different membership levels, and we include particular levels of coaching, training, and consulting in all of those different levels for what you need. So it's affordable, and it's a one-time annual amount. So we just backload all of the benefits there. And then where are we? LAMP, partnership networking. So we're always looking for partnerships and cross promotions and getting people involved and connected with each other as well. So we know that learning in groups is the most powerful because there's a dimension of learning that happens in groups that you can't get anywhere else, right? So you can't just Google it. You can't just do it on your own and do the self-help kind of thing. There are certain things that you can only learn when you're in a group. So we're trying to facilitate groups so people can work together and learn and share together.
I'm just writing this down. So my memory is on paper a lot.
You're lucky you haven't seen my desk. Right outside of the camera are piles of paper and Post-it notes everywhere.
So. Our desks sound very similar, and I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely.
You talk about the importance of groups and how groups can help you learn. If we could actually go from not from a group, but down to maybe a one-on-one type of relationship, because that's a group of two. Right. If you, looking back over your career, and is there a direct report that you led and maybe listened to that gave you some feedback that has stayed with you till now?
Well, it's funny because I don't really look up to people. I was never the kind of person that had posters of people on the wall or didn't idolize anybody. No, not one, actually, not even one. I just, people were always just people, But I will say this. I had a boss when I was in college. I was working for a Japanese company, chemical electrolytic company, and I was an assistant to the purchasing agent. She was a woman, and she had an engineering degree, and she had entered the workforce at a time when there were hardly any women engineers in the workplace. She was the only one for a long time, and we just used to have really great conversations, and I learned so much from her about, the things that she had to go through. And I know that maybe women now wouldn't believe it, and maybe men would be disgusted by it. But when the norm at the time was XYZ, that's what she had to go through. The jokes, the female kind of stuff, the cheating, all that stuff that was going on, and the good old boys group, and just a lot of stuff that she had to deal with. And she was the most professional, intelligent woman I had ever met up to that point. And she just carried herself with such professional dignity. And I saw her stand up to them without raising her voice, without being upset. She just set these boundaries, and I just watched that, and I was so in awe of just how she handled herself that I was very impressed with that. And I thought, that's what I'd like to be. I'd like to be fully myself and able to set those boundaries and to be myself even when everyone around me is not, okay. I guess you could say. So I that was impressive to me. And, the workplaces have changed a lot. A lot of the things that used to be perfectly normal are not acceptable now. But also women participate in, those kinds of bad jokes and other things too that, 40 years ago they didn't. So I think, there are still challenges in the workplace that when things are not going your way, when there's political alignments that are challenging, when you're being criticized or talked about behind your back, or whatever those things are, maybe misunderstood would be a big umbrella in that. To handle yourself wholly authentically, but professionally. And it's hard to do, but I think the more you practice it's a way of reclaiming some of your power.
I want to say I agree with you, but the thought that comes to mind is we don't often see that. People that are truly comfortable being wholly and authentically themselves and being in a professional environment, it's often treated as almost two separate entities, two separate beings.
Well, I think you're speaking correctly, because when we're in the workplace, we're trying to get noticed. Mm-hmm. We want to please people, right? So we adjust to try to be what they want us to be to a certain extent. But I do think that there is a power and trust that is built when you can be authentically yourself in your workplace anyway. Mm-hmm. And just say, I want to help you. I want to be that. I want to do that. But you're killing me, John. Cut it out, man.
Yeah.
You give me one more report to do and I'm just going to fall over dead. You have to be honest, and you have to be authentically who you are, and truthful. And what happens is when they can trust that who you are is who you are, whatever environment you're in, you don't waste your energy being drawn into the kinds of negative things that happen. But also the people around you learn to trust that.
It sounds as if it truly anchors someone. So if someone becomes anchored in who they are, other people trust that. People trust an anchor, a solid anchor. If you want that, you want that in a leader, that centered and grounded leader. There was a study. Oh, was it Bain Consulting? I think it's Bain Consulting Group. They identified, I believe, 33 competencies of a leader. I think it's 33. I think the center one was being centered and grounded as a leader. And then there were 4 quadrants that address different ways of leading. So if I think of someone that's being authentic, and I'm thinking they're authentic, and I add they're centered, they're grounded, they're that anchor that other people can trust. think that's a critical thing. And I thank you for bringing that up, the idea of authenticity up, with that groundedness. I know you and I met in a certification program, coaching and certification
Mhm.
program, years ago. How many years ago has it been? I don't even thought.
I think we're actually going on for
Four?
we're almost going to be at 4
Oh, so
years
you're four. I'm like
this
five,
fall.
six. It seems like it's been longer.
No.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of hard growing in that program, so it felt a little longer.
True. I know that's how we met, but how do you
Yeah.
continue to learn and grow as a leader today?
I, always you want to, when you're learning new things, I think the older you get, the more you want to be strategic about what you're doing. You can't just follow every interest into a rabbit hole, even though it's interesting to you. I think a lot of my training now is to continue maintaining what I have and already know. Because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not cognizant of the specific things that you're using, you also lose it. You have to be able to know what the skill is and know when to use it. So I think a lot of my training now is focused on maintaining my leadership levels and making sure that I'm not losing it, that I'm still practicing it consciously
Mm-hmm.
and applying it consciously in new contexts, because the contexts now are not the same ones that I had 20 years ago. So where it doesn't apply, those gaps need to be filled in with something, and that's where my learning would be.
Got it. Okay.
So certification programs are great to a certain extent. Sometimes it's not even about that. Sometimes it's just noticing something in yourself and taking the time to explore it
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what to do. So, let me just go back to A squared lamp groups again. So, on our podcast page, we have a self-development worksheet that we make available to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it walks you through that process of experimentation where you just notice something in yourself. What do you want to do about it? And where can you practice it?
Yeah.
So, run an experiment, practice it here, practice it there. Was it more effective in one place than another place? Did you notice anything? Did it work? If it didn't work, don't do it again. Try something else. Don't waste your time. So I think if you find something that works, that's where your learning goes. And if you're struggling with that, you see something, but you want to amplify that success, then you explore further and you look for, a book, a resource, a person, a mentor, a coach, your boss, somebody who can help you get those resources to develop that even further now that you know what it is and where you need to put your energy.
I like how you talk about experiments. I have something that I call leadership experiments. I have a library of them for people to try out.
It's
And
great.
I
love it because leadership, we get afraid to do anything wrong.
Yeah, I
as leaders.
know.
Because everyone's watching you, and if it doesn't work out, you feel like you've lost credibility. But if you could just call it an experiment, a leadership experiment,
an experiment, yeah. And there was this gentleman. I wish I should have written his name down. I need to go look him up again. But he was talking about the acquisition of new habits, and he had something called I think it's called the 10-30-100 rule. So let's say you want to learn something, you want to create a new habit, learn something new, whatever it is. Let's say it's a new habit. You look towards someone that has already done it. Okay, so you need to research different people that have done it and then find one thing you're going to do, and you commit to that for 10 days. Your goal is to be 100% for 10 days. If you don't get to that 10-day mark, you don't beat yourself up and go, oh, I'm a horrible person. You just look at it and you go,
That would be a bad
yeah,
experiment.
that'd be a bad experience. Just, it would be a bad experience. But you don't beat yourself up. You look at that particular piece and it's like, why did this work? Why did this not work? And then you get to make the decision to either recommit to do 10 days or try a different strategy that's on your list that you researched. Once you make it 10 days, he suggests you then make a 30-day commitment. You do the 30-day commitment, your goal is 90%. It's not even perfection. And I found that so refreshing. And then after you've done it 30 days, then your goal is 100 days with 80%. I found that just opened the door. It allows for experimentation. It allows you to try things out until you find what works for you. So I just felt I had to say that.
Well, and it's more effective in self-development because by experimenting and trying something to see if it works. Because the self-help industry is a $20 billion industry. I mean, 5 years ago, it was a $12 billion industry. It's like a $20 billion industry right now. And the problem is not that there isn't a lot of good stuff out there. The problem is that you can become, you can end up on a hamster treadmill because you just go from guru to guru to guru to guru to guru to guru, trying to do all this stuff, but you haven't found the one thing that actually applies to you.
Yes.
That's unique to you. And so I think that getting off the treadmill, there's a lot of resources, and if one of them works for you, please continue. Don't listen to me, whatever, just keep doing what works. But the treadmill for you is to find that one thing for you that's unique, that applies in your situation for right now, and to do that. So I think that just that applicable thing, and you, that goes back to the original first question when you're talking about leadership growth.
Yeah.
Right? Growth is always a series of small decisions that are made along the way. It's never something that you just do, right? Like you can ask a teenager, oh, well, how'd you get to grow to be a teenager? Well, they don't know. They just woke up one day and their voice changed, and they're mad at everybody. You just make small decisions, and stuff happens in you and around you. And that's how it is with leaders too. You make small decisions and things happen in you and around you. And then that's a new paradigm you have to deal with and maneuver through as you grow. Yeah.
Well, as leaders learn to maneuver, and they're maneuvering, taking these steps that they're not going to remember. They're not going to remember all of these steps. And
exactly.
I'm sure you've taken plenty of steps over your
and
career.
Missteps too.
Over your career since you were preschool, Susan. That's saying, put these blocks to the right.
The boss, yeah. It's like I didn't know I was 5 years old. I just wanted them to do what I
just
want.
needs to be done.
Never mind that it's the teacher.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Anyway,
you're making me have flashbacks to kindergarten. Oh.
Sorry.
There's a memory there that we'll let that go. So lots of experience, lots of little steps. Is there one that maybe stands out to you that if you were to give it as a piece of advice, maybe this is Susan's piece of advice for all leaders in the world, what would it be? What would that one piece of advice be, that recommendation be for you, for others?
The most powerful thing you can do if you want to be a leader is to focus on character. Don't focus on building skills, focus on character. I cannot stress that enough. It is absolutely essential. You can't be grounded. You can't be authentic. You can't be empathetic. You can't be vulnerable. You can't do any of the things that leaders need to do to be effective leaders unless you have good character. And I can, if you don't know how to start with good character, character, it's like it's the solid version of what we would call a virtue. So if you want to start developing character, I would say go to Benjamin Franklin's list of 13 virtues. Pick one, look it up in the dictionary, and start practicing that. And just start moving through all 13. Because I do think that with character in any situation that you're in, you'll have the muscles to move forward, pull back, learn, force, cajole other people, if I can say that, and have a little empathy for, to hear people express things when they're processing change. I think that character is probably the most important thing. And to be honest, if you look around today, we have a lot of leaders with very questionable character, and they can rise up to the top, but when they fall, they take down and destroy so much people's faith, people's trust, people's livelihoods, people's nations, people's states, people's communities. You can apply all the leadership skills to get to the next level, and if you don't have good character, your fall is going to hurt a lot of people. So,
wow. Well, thank you. That's those words are very true and poignant. I would say there's a lot we have going on in society right now, and I think maybe if people did a little character check and practice that, a lot of the challenges we're facing would take care of themselves, because people would be focusing on being individuals of character. So thank you for that. And with that,
fingers crossed everyone listens to this podcast and starts developing character.
I'm going to share this because you spoke about years ago when people used to say and do things that were questionable. And when you mentioned that, and we were talking about character, I don't know if you remember the movie 9 to 5 with Dolly Parton.
Oh, yes. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm not saying this because it's being recorded, but if that ever happened today, I mean, he would just not be around.
Yeah. I know.
As far as I'm concerned. And yeah, so
character, that's yeah. Anyway,
we've come a long way, baby.
We have come a long way. Maybe that's when women said, you know what, we're not going to take this anymore. Anyway, that used to be.
Well, I'm excited that we live in the time that we live in, and the nation or place that we're in, that we're serving, because I feel like there are women in the past who couldn't. And even when women first started entering the workforce, I mean, they had to dress and act like men, or they'd be accused of a lot of things. And I feel like we have so much freedom to be the kinds of leaders that we are as women without forcing men to be anything different, without having to force ourselves to be anything different. It just seems like there's so much more freedom and acceptance of who we are right now that it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a woman and a leader.
I would agree.
And I'm I pat all women on the back for their leadership roles, whether it's in the home or in the workplace or in the community, because 100 years ago,
Yeah.
couldn't have happened. 200 years ago, I would have been burned as a witch, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's like, I'm happy to be alive now. So, yeah. And I applaud you for this podcast, Erica. You're just a talented leader, and I'm
Thank you.
so excited for, all of the other leaders you're going to be interviewing on your podcast too.
Thank you. This is it's a work in progress, and it's helping me learn and grow and get out of my comfort zone. So I appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you so much.
Nothing like growing after you hit that record button.
I know.
Right in front of everybody else.
I would agree. It's like, oh, here we go. I'm going to put your contact information in the description so people can find you. But if you could just share your domain name again so that people can reach you there.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. It's A Squared Lamp Groups is the name of the organization. And that's ASQUAREDLAMPS.org, asquaredlamps.org. That's our website.
Okay. That is perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. And who knows, maybe we will have to do this again. This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk anyway.
Yeah, we'll talk
in between.